My name is Brad Jackson, and whether I'm flying airplanes or building pedals, I'm always learning. Join me, and together we'll expand our horizons. This is Jackson Audio. Welcome to this week's installment of the Jack Sunday Show. It is awesome to be back. I've been busier than a one-armed paper hanger right now because the travel industry is exploding again, which means I've been on the road like crazy. It's a good thing. People are traveling more, which is really good news. So it just means I'm crazy busy. So when I get off the road, I usually take about a day off just to kind of get myself normal. And then I jumped straight into building pedals. It's good to be back. Juan was very kind, took over for me last week while I was out and did a fantastic job of carrying the Jack Sunday Show as he always does. So thank you, Juan, for that. People have been asking us, what are we working on? What's going on? So I kind of want to spend some time on this episode saying this is what we're working on. I've been working nonstop for a year on modulation, time-based stuff people have been asking us about for a while. And we've got some stuff coming out that I am just as excited as I can possibly be. I think it's really, really special stuff. I haven't seen it done before in the industry, at least to the level and degree that we're taking it right now. So just stay tuned. In a couple months, you'll probably be seeing something very, very exciting from us. It's been kind of all-consuming as far as the amount of time I've been putting into it. It's been thousands of hours just of my side of things working on products. Because from the last week's episode, Juan mentioned that he basically takes products that I design and develop and puts them in production. That's what Juan does, and he is phenomenal at that. That's why Juan and I work so well together, because we're so much alike in so many ways, but professionally, I would say, we're very much opposites. I will spend thousands of hours in my room alone at night working on a pedal, either working on the schematic, the layout for the circuit board, designing all that stuff, getting a working prototype put together. After that, you've got code to write. If it's an involved project, you have code to write to get everything to kind of tie together and work together. I handle all that kind of stuff. And by the time I've spent that amount of time really deep into a project, I hope you take this the right way. But once I get to that point of like, okay, all the bugs are worked out, it's fine, I kind of just, I'm done. I'm so mentally exhausted on the project that it's like, okay, I need to hand it off to someone else. That's where Juan comes in. He is that guy. So those are the things we're working on now. Some new time-based stuff, like I said, modulation stuff for sure, that's coming. We teased some of that kind of stuff earlier in the episode Juan did last week. We've been listening to your requests, and we're definitely working on time-based stuff for you guys. The big question that everyone has to answer in the market is, well, there is a bunch of modulation pedals whether it's vibrato, chorus, even tremolo. There are so many products in the market that exist. The hard thing is to carve your own niche out. And so what we want to do is we want to take all analog effects. I'm all about analog. I don't have any fascination for doing digital stuff like that. It's just, there's people out there that do it so well, like Boss and Roland. Those guys are absolute masters of that kind of stuff, and they're generations ahead of where I could ever hope to be. So, but what I can do is I can take analog stuff, which I'm familiar with, and then we can start applying some digital technology to that, making it really interesting where you can have presets, recall stuff. But even that's not enough. It's cool to be able to recall presets, that's great. But the real trick in my mind is being able to take an interface, a digital interface that controls analog hardware, and making that interface really easily useful on stage. That's the trick. There's a lot of people that do the whole, save presets and kind of junk. But the interface, in my opinion, is lacking. It's a little difficult to use live. I'm hoping to solve that. And as far as I can say right now, I believe we have. I think we solved it in a very clever way. It's still it's not overwhelming, it's not cumbersome, but it's something you can recall presets very easily in a live environment, and you can run the pedal in several different modes, whether it's a live mode where you kind of have just, this is the face value of what the pedal is, or you can have a preset mode where you've got 120 different presets that you can recall just like that, and it's all analog all the time. So that's what I'm working on. That's been the trick, is trying to get the digital control of analog devices. Get that whole process to be seamless, but also get it to where it can be used very functionally in a live environment, because that's everything. If you have a great sound, a great sounding pedal, whether it's a rack mount pedal or pedal board type pedal, if you can only really access one good sound at a time, then it's probably gonna be more of a studio tool. Case in point, the Echoplex. Are you ever gonna find a better sounding delay? I would probably say you won't. The big problem with that pedal, or not pedal, that gigantic box, is it's hard to use it live because you can't recall stuff on the fly. So that gets relegated to the studio where it's great. It sounds great, and you can really let it shine in the proper environment. What I want to do is I want to take that kind of cool stuff and bring it on the stage where it's perfectly consistent live, so that there's no weird gotchas and variables. That's what I'm all about. That's what I've been spending the last year and a half working through, and we're there. I think it's going to be killer. Okay, we talked about things we've been working on. This right here, this monstrosity, well, I guess you can thank COVID for this, because when the lockdowns happened, I had nothing but spare time. I didn't leave the house for about 3 months. And so I made this. This is something we're working on. Juan and I have been calling this our concept car. It is something we developed, gosh, like it took 3 or 4 months to get this all put together, because it is obscenely complex, obscenely complicated, but it is the first real big step that we took last year on trying to develop analog modulation effects with extreme digital control. So we've got a long way to go, but you'll be seeing several products like this from us probably the next year or so. Really, it was just a completely unrestricted, limitless, like say yes to everything, say yes to every idea, just to really prove the concept of what can be done with digital control of analog devices. And this is where we're at. This is like, I'm not going to tell you what it exactly is. If you want to make some guesses, you go right ahead. But it's a framework. It is a structure that we can fit multiple modulation effects in, whether it's chorus, reverbs, delays, vibratos, everything. It's just a really good framework for how to control all those analog effects with extreme digital control and an amazing amount of recall and that kind of stuff. So that's been the whole of my last year working on this project. I'm still working on it, still working on several other versions of other things too, but just to kind of give you a glimpse, a behind the scenes look of what we're really working on. A lot of times it's not cool to show what you're working on because maybe you feel like you're kind of giving away too much, but I'm happy to do that because this channel is about learning and developing products that haven't been done before. It's nothing but learning. That's all you're doing. So I'm happy to show that, and eventually we'll get into the nitty gritty and talk about what it is, what it does, and how it does what it does. But for now, if you think we've been goofing off, we have not been. Well, it is a beautiful day in the People's Republic of Texas, so that makes it a wonderful time for Ask Jackson. All right, so we've got 3 questions. I'm doing 3 questions today because I've been gone for a little bit, so I feel like I've fallen behind a little bit on the giveaways and the pedal stuff. So 3 really great questions came in this week. First one's from Nathan Turner. And he says, you've had the opportunity to collaborate with some of the most influential guitarists in the world over the last few years and have produced some incredible signature pedals. Thank you very much, that's kind of you. What has driven you to be so intentional with artist relationships? Well, okay, great question. I'm glad you asked because that's one of the driving forces behind why we started Jackson Audio. Is we wanted to build a company that served players. I mean, that's our motto. Like, it's the slogan for the company is for the players. That's why we're here. We love musicians. We love guitar players. My life has been radically changed by musicians that I admire and appreciate. And it steered my life in ways that I couldn't have even conceived of it going. And it's all because I play guitar. So guitar players are a huge part of my life. I talk about guitar players the way some people talk about sports players. Mark Knopfler to me is as real of a hero as mine as Michael Jordan is to some kid that plays basketball. That's just the nature of the beast. So when Juan and I and Nigel started the company, we wanted to build a company that actually intentionally goes after artists, not for the sake of having someone like a Michael Jordan on your roster that you use to promote your products, but to have someone on your team who you so into and you bless. And that has been the driving force behind the company for a very long time. And it's starting to happen. It's really getting fun because some of the products we've done with guys like Joey and Mateus and Drew Shirley, those guys, they're dear friends of ours. And they became friends of ours because we worked together for years. It's been really, really gratifying to have worked with these people and to see that the work we do together is helping sustain them and their families, and of course it's sustaining, you know, our families as well. So it's a very symbiotic thing. I heard someone say years ago, it is way more fun to share a six-pack with 5 of your friends than it is to sit in your hotel or your apartment by yourself and drink a six-pack. That's the way I roll. I would rather work with people that I love and care about and share the wealth and share the blessing with people that I care about. It's way more fun to live life that way than to try to hoard it all for yourself. So that's why we invest so heavily in artists, because we love them, we believe in the work that they're doing, and we want to be a part of helping them do that. And honestly, to be very transparent, we've caught a lot of crap for it. We've caught a lot of flack. Call them haters, whatever you want. You're full of crap for saying that, but it's the God's honest truth. That's why we started this company and why we're doing what we're doing, and it's a blast. It's so much more fun to share good times with your friends than to try to hoard them all for yourself. It makes it a whole lot more fun. So yeah, thanks for the good question, Nathan. I really appreciate the time. Let's see, what did you want? Nathan Turner, he wants an Asabi. You're gonna get an Asabi, so thank you for the great question. Keep the questions coming, guys. We love answering them. This is a great question. I picked it, and it wasn't until I answered the question previously from Nathan Turner that I realized this question is from Nathan Turner as well. I picked it because it's just a great question. Had nothing to do with Nathan Turner. I don't even know the guy, but the boy asked really good questions. All right, here's the question. Nathan Turner writes, do you think there is a type of guitar effect that has yet to be invented, or do you think that the advent of broad effects types came and went with the 20th century? Man, that is a phenomenal question. I think about that kind of stuff more than I care to admit, because, you know, we've been in this business for, what is it, 4 years now? Is that right? And you're always asking yourself the question, what next, what next? Because you never really can stop. It's always, you're on a treadmill, you're only as good as your last product, and man, 6 months after a great product comes out, your dealers are saying, hey, what's next, what's next? So it's like you're on a continual treadmill of, well, I've got to get something done. I've got to always try to jump the shark with every new product just to stay relevant. So yeah, it becomes very stressful. And you're asking yourself questions like, well, is there something that I could be doing that hasn't been done? And no, I don't think there's a new, that I have found, certainly, I don't think there's a new thing like, let's talk modulation. There's chorus, there's vibrato, there's tremolo, there's flanger. I'm trying to think, what is the fifth thing out there that doesn't even have a name yet, that is the latest and greatest, that we've all got to have, that the second that product drops, every band in the world will have that on the first riff of their new album? I don't know. If you know, let me know, please. But the cool thing to do until that happens, maybe it's typically driven by technology. It's not typically driven by a guitar player saying, I want to create this sound. I need to go manufacture a microprocessor or a chip that will produce that type of sound. It's usually a chip manufacturer like Texas Instruments or whomever, or someone who's making delay chips will come out with a new chip and they'll say, hey, it does this, what do you think? And the whole market descends on it and says, oh, I can make a chorus pedal out of this, or I can make a flanger out of it, I can do a delay. That's typically how things go. But until something like that happens, well, first of all, I don't think it certainly won't be analog, because analog, you know, by nature is kind of a dinosaur in this arena. Now it's all about modeling and digital signal processing and everything else. So whatever does happen will be a digital thing. So maybe that is the answer. Maybe that is it. The guys like Kemper and Fractal and all these cats that are doing wild things with modeling and all this kind of stuff, maybe that is the next frontier. But what I think you can always take great sounding analog equipment, and you can always find new and creative ways to apply digital control to analog stuff and eke out sounds of it that you never even thought that you could get before, which is one of the things we're working on with some of the modulation pedals we're coming out with now. We've got a technology into all these pedals that I've never even heard mentioned by anybody else. So the analog circuitry it is what it is. How you control it, how you dynamically control it, that's all new, at least the way we're doing it. So I'm super excited about that. So these are the kind of things that I lie awake at night in bed trying to figure out, okay, how can we make, of course, for instance, how can you make a chorus pedal do something it's never done before? So that people will be like, oh my gosh, this is a totally new thing, or at least a new spin on it. So yeah, that's That's my entire world. That's what I think about all the time. So awesome question. Nathan Turner, thank you for the question. You asked for a fuzz. So man, you're getting a fuzz and an Asabi because you've dominated 2/3 of this week's episode of Ask Jackson. Great questions. Thanks for the insight. Last question by a guy named John Peters. He writes and says, what makes a great pedal? Dead simple question, but man, isn't that always the thing like you're trying to figure out? Like there's the Klons of the world. It's a very simple thing, but it's a great pedal. It's so sublimely simple, but it's absolutely the most complex, wonderful thing in the world. That's, man, talk about hitting a home run on one product. It's such a great thing. But the question being, what makes a great product? Man, I think it's a really simple answer. If any product, it doesn't matter if it's something like a Fuzz Factory from ZVEX, or Morning Glory from JHS, or a Julia chorus from our buddies at Walrus. Does it inspire you? If it inspires you, that is, in my mind, that is the definition of a great pedal. Have y'all seen the video of John Mayer he's on stage talking to a bunch of musicians, and he's talking about how he buys pedals just for fun. I think he pulls out, it's a reverb pedal, and I forget who makes it. It may be New Neighbor. And he says, I bought this pedal on a whim, and he said, I spent like $200 on it, plugged it in, and this is the first thing that comes out. And the riff that he plays is it Love on the Weekend? Something like that. And he basically said, this pedal inspired me to write just the first thing that came out of my hands as soon as I played this pedal. Well, there you go, it's an inspiring thing, that's what matters. Music inspires music, inspires music, inspires music. That's what we do. We're inspired by musicians, and hopefully we're inspiring you to make music. And it just keeps going. And it's just a very rewarding cyclical thing. So that's what we're all about, man. And if a pedal does that, it's a great pedal. It doesn't matter what it is or what it does. If it works for you, it works. And like Eddie Van Halen said, God rest his soul, if it sounds good, it is good. That's my official statement. That question came to us from John Peters, and John Peters, who asked the question, of course, what makes a great pedal? He asked for a Golden Boy in return for that question, and so, John Peters, you're getting a Golden Boy. Thank you so much for the question, John. Very simple question, but man, that's a long explanation for a simple thing. Guys, thank you so much for watching the show. It's always such a privilege to do this. I love doing it. It's very life-giving for me, certainly. And I apologize I wasn't here last week, but of course, again, thank you for Juan for picking up the slack for me, as he always does. Stay tuned every week for the Jack Sunday Show, launching most Sundays at noon, unless I'm on the road and just can't get to it. So thank you for watching. Appreciate you subscribing. Like our videos. Tell your friends about it. And as always, keep the questions coming. It makes it so much more fun to make videos with intent and with purpose, because you're asking us what you need to know. We're happy to help. So thank you for watching. We'll see you next week. Take care, guys.